So folks, hello and welcome to our first executive fireside chat. My name is Anthony O'Callaghan and I am the current chairman of IT at Cork. And delighted to present to you here today, and also delighted to welcome our panelist for today. So just welcoming Bask Iyer, and there's a bit of a surprise in store for all of you. So Bask, thank you very much for joining, and thank you for the nice surprise that you gave us a couple of minutes ago, rocking up in your Munster jersey.
Yes, I'm here.
You can do no wrong, right? You can do no wrong here now today in our eyes, right? But no, genuinely, thank you very much. I know you're a busy guy, right? So thanks for taking the time out of your day to support this new series. And look, we're delighted to have you as well to kind of kick it off. We couldn't think of a better name to kick it off, right? So coming all the way to us from California, I believe.
Yep.
So look, Bask, I can see we've kind of attendees kind of coming in, right? So look, I'll just give some guidance to the attendees as they come in as well. Look, feel free to, drop any questions into the Q&A. We'll be monitoring those throughout this event as well, right? So, if you have any questions for Bask, then for sure just drop them in and we'll address them as we go through this. We're trying to keep this as informal as possible. But just let's say if there's anything that kind of pops up throughout, just throw it in, right? So Bask, look, again, thanks for your support, and thanks for the support of VMware. They've been incredible partners to us for as long as I can remember in IT at Cork. And it just continues to go from strength to strength, and today is just testament of that, right? So thank you. So look, VMware needs no introduction in Cork. A very kind of a very strong company and a very strong brand here in Cork as well. So look, I suppose in general to kind of kick it off, right? How are you guys doing, right? I suppose we're all dealing with a little bit of chaos at the moment. How are you doing? How's the company doing, etc. All throughout this madness, let's say.
Yeah, first of all, I think Cork needs no introduction to VMware as well. We've all been there several times and love coming there. Make it a point to go to the Jameson factory to make sure that I get my 20 euros worth of booze from Jameson. So it's a good fun. I've taken all kind of visitors all over Cork as well. Beautiful city, beautiful town, beautiful country. So thank you for the opportunity. Love it. How are we doing? I mean, the first few weeks, I was thinking we got to enable all the people to work remotely. We were in crisis mode, really pumped up, charged, and didn't really think much about it. Overnight we had 40,000 employees working remotely, and things were working magically well. And so we were just beginning to pat ourselves on the back, saying how well the IT and digital systems are working. I got a lot of thank yous and kudos from all the way from the board and the CEOs and so on. But then quickly you realize it's not a sprint, it's a marathon mode, right? So, we forgot a few things you go flat out for that hard, then you do get burnt out. And so the next few lessons is, this is going to be for a long run. And how do you coach the team and manage the team so they don't get burnt out? So now it is into, mindfulness, take your breaks, take your vacations, don't work weird kind of hours. We have to be here for another year. And the person who's going to, run for the longest time is going to be successful here, right? So that's where we are. But humbly though, we are thriving. A lot of us are able to do these kind of things and share these things. You shouldn't mistake this to what is really happening. People are dying. It's a sick global pandemic. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people have lost their businesses. So I'm humbled by it, right? I don't want to get overall taken by that. And we're going through several things in leadership. This is going to be for leaders who have to lead this, right? It's international, it's global. Luckily, we planned for this, and so in a crisis mode, my team and my leadership team actually did extremely well. But you can't really plan for how to bring people back and what is going to happen to the future, etc. So first is a humility on this is a problem and we need to get out of it. The nice thing is all of us in it together. I'm working a lot with my competition, other CIOs, etc. So it feels good that the community is coming together to sort it out. But I'm an eternal optimist. I see a light at the end of the tunnel. VMware in particular has done extremely well. We had the most successful, most innovative time. We released on a lot of new products. Our people are, Cork employees are helping us close the quarter, and we did that remotely without going to the office.
Yeah.
So all that is good. It's in the context of don't get carried away, because there are a lot of people struggling right.
Yeah, and I think it's that kind of healthy balance as well, right? As you try to, as employees try to remain productive, but equally you can't ignore the fact that, everyone's dealing with, the chaos of, kids in the background and all this kind of stuff, right? And we kind of took this approach, I suppose when we're all on conference calls, and it's nothing unique to us, right? Where, people that you're on a conference call with and their kid runs in and they're apologizing for it, and you got to welcome that stuff, right? You just got to, everyone's dealing with it. There's no point in hiding it. This is the new normal for potentially a very long time, right? So look, we just got to, deal with it. And I think you kind of raised a very good point around your readiness, right? So, I've heard it a lot, I suppose, in the last few months since COVID hit, right? That a lot of CIOs and IT organizations are saying that, look, COVID really drove their digital transformation, right? And, this meant a move to cloud and, with vital services like simple things that we all consider a commodity like Office 365, and we built up our cyber walls, et cetera, right? But, what's your take on that kind of statement, right? Is that, CIOs that were already far behind where they should have been? Or is this genuine in terms of, COVID drove our digital transformation?
I think one thing, it's very fashionable for most people to say, hey, the CIO who doesn't do this will be out of a job. Ever since in my career, every year some analyst produces and says, if you don't do AI, you're out of a job. If most CIOs will be out, and so on. And like Mark Twain said, the news about my death is greatly exaggerated. So the CIOs are still very important. Their value to the organization continues to grow up, because as we become more and more dependent on technology, who's running the show? It used to be different other functions before. It was clearly now your IT function and digital function. Most CIOs worldwide have responded like the first responders. So if you have a fire or earthquake, the first responders, it's been your IT department. So we have to acknowledge that. Otherwise, we would not be doing all the stuff you're doing. So world productivity largely has been high due to digital transformation people have done. Not everybody has done that well, and sometimes it's the CIO's fault, but sometimes it's the company not recognizing. So a lot of companies have put some money into it, and they're getting some results. So they're able to somewhat work. Some companies are thriving, like our company is thriving because we've invested in the right kind of technology. And if you take the larger Dell, over 140,000, 180,000 people working and remotely and actually hitting all the numbers and doing very well. So it's clear that people who have spent time on information technology are benefiting. Although most people are somewhat working, not everybody is thriving. A lot of people are still struggling.
Yeah.
And also, take industries which have invested. There's a large chain in California, grocery chain, to get your produce, and they haven't gone digital, right? They felt like you had to walk into the store and do that. And when you ask them, how do I get my delivery, they kind of say, well, we have to build our e-commerce platform, and it'll be a year and a half or something.
Yeah.
Year and a half, there will be nothing left. Whereas the other chains, it's not just all Amazon. The other chains have done some digitization. While it doesn't look very pretty, they have innovated and said, here's a simple website. You can go order what you want, drive your car, open your trunk, we'll put it in your trunk, right?
Yeah.
And so we are driving in droves to their competition because they just spend a little bit more time on digital transformation.
Yeah.
Of course, things like Amazon, it's good or bad depending on how you see, are just thriving, right? Because all of us have gone completely e-commerce. But the local businesses, shouldn't just give up and not do anything. I mean, they should be doing their digital transformation. I mean, if that is clearly the place to go, what's the point standing against the time, right? And you can still have your bricks and mortar, you can still have your customer service, it's still a people business. But anyway, that's what we see is the digital divide as we see it now is unfortunately even larger.
Yeah.
And some companies are going to be really struggling because they haven't started.
And
you're going to see some changes in CIOs and CEOs because the CEOs have not taken, so some people are looking and saying, well, we're not doing as well as some of the other companies, so should we look at change in our leadership? So that's where boards are going to look at.
Right? Yeah. And I think that old kind of statement of, innovate or die has never been so relevant, right? Specifically now, right? But I think you touched on it there a second ago, right? And you mentioned your word kind of career, right? And genuinely, like your bio kind of fascinates me, right? And we threw up a kind of small, I mean, that was a small snapshot, right? Because I've been kind of stalking your LinkedIn profile and stuff the last few weeks, right? But it just fascinates me, right? And you've held kind of CIO roles in some of the biggest companies in the world, right? And now ending up in VMware, right? So like just kind of, we've a lot of students on this webinar as well, right? So just kind of taking us back, right? Where did it start? Did you always want to be a CIO? Did you always have a passion for tech, or how did you kind of end up where you're at?
So your career counselors are going to hate me and not invite me back again. When I was going in college, this is the question that everybody said: what are you really passionate about? What is really passion? And I actually went and thought about that for a long time. I realized I like drinking, I like girls, I like guitar, I like the beach. And those were my passion. So I even tried to do, how can I make money? So should I start a cafe in a beach, in a tropical place, play the guitar, and then just serve booze? I mean, I thought through all those business plans because that's what they tell you to do. Then I realized, well, I like the guitar. I don't have as much talent as I thought I did. And then my fingers hurt if I play all day long. And beaches are, staying there every day in a beach, 9 to 5 doesn't sound, it's hot and sticky and so on. And, in spite of all the drinking, I can only drink so much, right? Even at a young age. So all that kind of fizzled out when you do the business plan in your head. And so sometimes it's like, you can also have a career where you say, I want to have a career to do the things that I'm passionate about, right? So I can, I couldn't afford my first guitar. I'm able to afford a few guitars now, but yeah, I couldn't have done that if I didn't have a real job. So some of the things I had to change my mind is, it's not all about money. It's not all about that, but you need to get some financial independence. You need to have some kind of accomplishments to still get the folks you want. So that's one lesson learned. The other thing is, you have to trust your gut and you have to trust your instincts. This is almost like big data. All our education tells you work with facts and data. Right? It tells you have the pros and cons. Should you join this company or join this company? Should you do this or that? And you write the pluses and minuses. Should I go to US? Should I stay here? Should I not stay here? And but that's not how any of us, at least I haven't done my big decisions that way. When I married my girlfriend in college, I was just a very young guy, and there was a gut reaction. I didn't have the pros and cons of all the girls that I liked and what are the pluses and minuses. That's not what I did. And maybe she's the only one who talked to me. I don't know how that happened, but that's the best decision in my life, right? And having kids and so on is just probably second best. You didn't give it a lot of thought, but you do. Your hunch, your gut feel, as they say, is big data. And then part of the stuff is learning to trust it. So in my career, it looks like I planned the whole thing, but you join it to say you need to do a great job of the job you have, and then plan for the next step. That's been one of the things I did. Is I first started I did my business in India. I was selling refrigerators and air conditioners. I did very well. Then I started selling computers. Didn't do well. And so I said I had to learn about computers. So I came to Florida Tech. Did my master's there. As luck would have it, that school had the best teachers. It's not MIT or Harvard. Nobody had heard about this, but all the NASA scientists were teaching because they were right on the Space Coast. And my assignments were in NASA. Who would have, so I went from at 17 or 17 or maybe 20, I was the brightest person on the planet. I was totally convinced I was the smartest person. To then you work in NASA, and then you realize you're the least intelligent person. Everybody, the chair in NASA is smarter than you, right? So that humbling experience to say, oh my God, there's so much to learn at a very young age has helped. And so that has stayed with me to say learning. And then the rest of it is you make the calls, each good call. And a couple of things that has helped me in my career that I tell people is, don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. I left my country and went to the United States. Turned out to be great. Still love India. I still do a lot of business in India. Then I took a job in Florida for a while, and then went to the middle of nowhere in the United States. It's a very, very small town in Bern, Indiana, and they had never seen anybody from anywhere in the world. I mean, they've just seen people from the town. So imagine the kind of prejudices and things that they would have, and it was all fun. I took it as an experience to educate people on, hey, I'm not from Iran, I'm not from Iraq. It's not even close. So it was good fun to kind of educate and go through that and learn. It's good learning. And then I worked in the East Coast, then in China, in the West Coast, in Europe, in England, did a stint in all over Asia Pac, and you made some compromises and so on. But the working for different companies has actually helped. Most people have gone and worked in one company, and nothing wrong with that. But to me, my kind of personality, if you want to learn a lot, after 3-4 years in a job or so, you don't learn as much. The best is to go to a strange country, strange company, strange culture, not knowing the job, and then you need to feel this nervousness in your.
And yeah, I mean, is that what kind of drove the change? Was it when you started to feel a little bit too comfortable and to throw yourself back out of your comfort zone again and challenge yourself? I mean, that's really good, really good advice.
That's what it is. Yeah, I think and it's also surprising that if you're uncomfortable, there are other skills that you don't realize you have. It's like some people who are differently enabled overcompensate with other senses, right? People who are not, visually impaired, our hearing senses goes very high. They can do it pretty well. So the jobs I've done well, where I'm not competent or not prepared for, have actually been fabulous learning experiences.
Yeah.
Because then it brings other dimensions in you. Like computer jobs have always been easy. I'm trained. I'm an IT specialist, so I can go and be a CIO of any company and would be able to do that in my sleep now. But doing general management job, or I was head of R&D for a division making turbochargers and so on, which I didn't know anything about. That it's just fabulous. Now you have to go leadership, figure out, how to support the best people, which talent to pick, and who to support. So that brings in other skills that you didn't know you had. So I would strongly recommend people to say, get out of your comfort zone. You have one life to live. Why not go work everywhere for everybody and learn as much as you can?
I mean, if there's a mass exodus from companies now in Cork, right, people are going to come looking for you, right? It's all going to be because of you. But I mean, you touched on a really good point there as well, right? Because look, I was, let's say, prior to this event, right, I was kind of doing a bit of reading up about kind of VMware and the IT organization there, and I kind of read this article around how the IT organization, I suppose, kind of spearheaded the change from IT being a back office function into a real business contributor, right? And you and the organization were big enablers of that, right? So what was your kind of what was the turning point when you kind of, I suppose, firstly, how did you kick it off, and then what was the turning point when you knew that was working, right? Because I suppose it's back to your whole point around pushing you and your team outside our comfort zone to do something different, right?
Yeah, I mean, 2 or 3 things they don't teach in school or management school probably help in hindsight. The team has told me, I haven't thought through it much. I've been leading more instinctively. Couple of things is, most IT folks, people, we start saying things like, we have to. Everybody's a customer of everybody. So we say, HR is a customer of IT, or marketing is a customer of IT, and so on. The problem with that is you forget the real customer, the person who's buying. You have to be, so the rest of us are colleagues in an organization, and you have to be respectful of colleagues, right? So if you have an issue with your computers and so on, it's my job to help you. But you're not the customer, respectfully, because it's disrespectful to the paying customer who pays that. First is to educate my own team to say, because then sometimes internal customers are wrong. And you need to do what is right for VMware, not what is right for the HR department or finance department, right? Because that's not always aligned. So that's one lesson learned that people don't normally teach you. They typically tell you things like, you support the salespeople and the salespeople go sell. And that is not necessarily true. You do want to be respectful and support them, but you don't want to lose sight of the end customers. In a lot of cases in VMware, I am the end customer as well, right? I was a person buying VMware products or my team, IT. So you now can go and educate and say, people like me, this is what they expect from VMware. So you can take the position of, let me be helpful on the front end. So that helps. The second thing is you have to start, there's a Maslow's law of hierarchy, sort of. You have to get certain things running. You can't come and say, I want to be strategic, and your email is not working, right? So you first have to get your email working, your network working, people working in a reasonable amount of thing, and then you can go up the value chain. A lot of leaders want to say, I don't want to do any back office.
Yeah.
I want to just work with the CEO and do the strategic one. It doesn't work that way. I learned a lesson from another CIO who said that, you don't talk about strategy if your operations is not working well. At the same time, don't talk about operations if your operations is working reasonably well, right? So the lesson for me is I've been a good B student. So I know I was not a straight A student. That's helped me because you need to know which ones B is good enough and which ones you absolutely must ace. Now, if you're really that smart to get A's in every thing that's good for you, and I don't want the parents to get angry with me, so because I want my kids to get A's in everything as well. But realistically, you need to pick and choose on where do you want to score your A's and where do you want to score your B's. And it's not that bad to get a B in a few things. It's not even bad to get a C's. So you need an operation to be a B plus or something, or maybe an A, but not go into, because if you say I'm 99.99% operational, the question people will ask is, why are you not 100%? So there's no end to it, right? So you need to reasonably know what is a good state of operation, and you need to quickly switch to strategy. And then that's the trick of knowing when to talk about strategy and when to talk about operations is very tricky, and you should know internally when to do that. So once we had to fix the basics, people have to have laptops and PCs and network, all the boring stuff that you think has to work though. That's one of the reasons you have to make other people productive. And then you can talk about strategy.
Yeah, and I think it probably builds on that credibility, right? I mean, there's no point in building a beautiful house on a crumbling foundation, right? And right. I mean, that's, you know, very similar. I mean, it's really good guidance, right? Because it's very similar to kind of what we're doing here. Like the first year is about fixing the foundation, and then strategy comes next, right? But exactly to your point, there's no point in talking about strategy if your operation is absolutely crumbling, right? And I was just kind of scanning the Q&A there for a second, right? And I actually saw something that's very relevant for this area, right? Let's say John McSweeney was asking, you know, what's the scariest job or the scariest role you took, where you initially thought, you know, why did I apply, but you did it anyway?
So people ask me 2 different ways. I'll answer that question too. People always say, what keeps you up at night? That's another way they ask me another question that's much similar. And the answer is nothing. I sleep very soundly at night because in my heart, I know I've done everything I can and I haven't done anything wrong. And I also know I'm a human, right? So that's, you want to come and give it all your shot. Don't do anything immoral, illegal, hurting, whatever, you know, politics, whatever. So I can go sleep at night, and sleep is worth a lot, right?
Yep.
And every athlete needs to sleep. So I think that's the first one, is nothing worries me. The second thing is, I always say it's very easy to get a job. It's very difficult to do it. So you need to prepare for the jobs. So when you're there, you're not totally uncomfortable. So you need to prepare. So Ireland has started playing cricket, so I can talk a little bit about cricket. Is you don't go, when you want to start playing cricket, you want to play some bowlers who bowl at 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, and then 40 miles an hour, and 50 miles an hour, and so on. You don't want to be playing for a test team with the West Indies or somebody else, and they bowl at 100 miles an hour. So it's easy. Sometimes you can get yourself selected there, then you're facing, and the guy's throwing a ball at your head, and that's when panics, that's when you get scared. So, but if you need to slowly push yourself and prepare yourself for the next level, and then when you're there, you're at least confident you won't embarrass yourself, right? So that's the one. The one thing that I was, true example to answer the question is when I was asked to be the CTO or the R&D leader for a company within Honeywell that made turbochargers. It's a mechanical device, an automotive. I'm a computer technologist. I have a mechanical engineering degree, but I never paid attention in school. Like most of us haven't as much, and I never expected to use the things that I read in school. And then you go there and you have PhDs in mechanical engineering, design and turbocharger. Everybody's brighter than you, so that gives you a feeling of, oh my God, I'm out IQ'd here. So it's a good feeling though, because then you go into what are your strengths? How can I find out who's the smartest one here, and how can I help them be successful? That your job becomes a coach, right? So I can't say that well, but I can definitely help them. And the best feedback I've gotten is from those folks is to say, you're one of the best CTOs we've had because you let us do what we were good at without trying to be smarter than us. So I think trying to get comfortable in not being the smartest person in the room, which is another advice I'll give you, because you're not going to be that. Yeah. And it's okay. I mean, hire the smarter ones and be comfortable. There's still a role for you to play. You can carry the drinks, you can carry the coffee, and there's nothing wrong with that.
But so the key takeaway is always hire smarter than yourself, right? I mean, it's sound advice. Sound advice.
You want to hire people like you, or I mean, hire diversity, but I think don't try to be the smartest one in the room is what I've tried to do. It's a lot more interesting when you have other smarter people, and you learn that, and then you get comfortable with saying, I don't get intimidated by smart people because I know there are always people better than you and smarter than you. And you
Absolutely.
work.
I think, I mean, look, you probably find that a lot of your role is kind of coaching of these smart people as well in terms of how to navigate, and like they can be super smart people, but you know, super smart people can get caught up in politics, right? And you know, helping people how to navigate those kind of choppy waters is super important as well, right? But you actually touched on a piece there that kind of triggered a question with me, right? So, like in IT organizations over the last kind of 10 years, we saw the emergence of, you know, so there was always your CIO. Then you saw the emergence of CTOs within IT. Then you see CDOs and multiple Cs. I mean, let's say, what's your view on this? Is this, you know, let's say, are these I suppose, roles that belong in IT, or are these, let's say, the re-emergence of shadow IT in a way, right? When you look at a true technology company, I know a CTO in a product company is very different to a CTO in a technology company, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at all these C-level roles within a technology company, I mean, what's your kind of take on it? Do they all roll up to CIOs?
Hardly marketing, and you know, so everybody wants to report to the CEO, right?
Mm.
They don't realize that they're, you know, if you get too close to the sun, you can get it burned. But everybody wants to report to the CEO, so you get the C titles. If I was a CEO, how many people do I want to be telling me about technology?
Yeah.
You know, why don't you have a CFO, a chief something else, a chief stockbroker, you know, external facing CFO, a chief internal facing CFO, and that makes no sense. There's only one chief, in my opinion, who runs finance, one head of HR, and one head of IT. Sometimes in organizations, you don't have that person. So you say, this person is good at running data center. We need to get somebody who's digital to transform us. I do this, do the CDQ and so on. My recommendation is go out and hire the right person.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you, every time I've worked as a CDO, CIO, I worked as both, and so on, and I always feel like, you know, you're struggling and you're coming up with names and terminologies that make, then there's a chief data officer. How can you do information technology without data? How can you do CISO, chief information security officer? Those are important, but to me, do you want the CEO to now learn about CISO and CDO and CDTO and chief data officer? That makes no sense. So I'm telling all folks to say the right way is don't get caught up on all this. It's a good way for consultants and other guys to make money. It'll come back to the.
That's it. And sometimes I think, and maybe yourself, right, as you're kind of, you know, like if you're looking at companies, I mean, if you look at a company and you see, you know, a ton of C-level execs like that CDO, CISO, CTO, CIO, I mean, would that kind of give you a bit of an indication into the culture or the way that the company operates, right? Is it just very top heavy in a way, right? And political?
Yeah, I wouldn't even get worried about the title. I mean, the titles are a title, but if they all are not reporting to one technology organization, correct, that is just too much. As a shareholder, I mean, I would look and say, what the hell is the CEO doing? And then they bury that all the person under the CFO or COO or somebody else sometimes because the CEO realizes he cannot handle it. The CEO doesn't have a technology strategist reporting into his organization. Then you're going to be behind on digital transformation. So, you know, I've always been consistent on this to say, you know, I've done both jobs and it doesn't make sense to me. And, you know, you need to get like you have to run operations and you have to do strategy. That's just the way it is. And the problem is as you go further, IT is becoming more and more critical, and it's becoming difficult to find one person with the dimensions to do all of them. So they create the 6 jobs, but you still want to have one leader who's qualified to run all that, right? So we are looking for quick fixes is how I look at it. You know, if I start a company, I'd have one person responsible for technology that I would trust, empower, and then he or she can hire as many chiefs as they want.
Makes sense. And you know, I suppose back to that point as well, though, right? When you look at, you know, organizations where you have a CIO and you have a CTO reporting into the CIO, that CTO is normally tasked with kind of emerging tech and, you know, looking at what's coming next, right? I mean, what's your view around emerging tech? Is it good to be an early adopter, let's say within reason? I mean, I've seen scenarios where emerging tech, I mean, is coming so fast that it's just, you're just evaluating, right? And, you know, it's very difficult to make decisions because there is so much out there, right? I mean, what's your view around emerging tech? Is it good to be in there at the early stage to be an early adopter, or would you kind of traditionally wait and kind of see how it pans out before jumping in?
Okay, I have lived close to this ocean a lot, and so I've done a lot of body surfing. And now let me give you a surfing analogy on this one. So when you go to the beach and you're surfing, there's always waves coming, right? There are some surfers who dress up well, they sit on the surfboard and they're just waiting for the next wave. They keep waiting the whole, and they look cool, but they're not riding any wave. So technology comes in waves, and there are some people who are just, the next one, AI is going to be great. The next one, just wait for the wave, and the whole day you spend doing nothing. Then there are other people who jump on the wave the minute they see it, right? The time to ride a wave is, there's an optimum time to ride the wave. And, so you need to ride, get off the wave, ride another wave, get off the wave, ride another wave, get off the wave. That's what you have to do. Yep. So if you do it too early on technology, you're going to get wiped out. If you wait too late, there's nothing behind it. What's the point in you trying to roll out Office 365 now? Yep. How are you going to differentiate from your competition who've done it 3 years ago? There's no point. So you're just catching up. So some people are too conservative. A lot of IT folks are too conservative, actually. And they just wait till everybody else screws out. And that's not how to be innovative, But at the same time, you can't go early, and get wiped out. So what I do, this is another reason why the CIO and the chief person has to be involved, and you take input from everybody, your CTO and everybody else, but you need to make those calls to make it. So that's how I look at it. Think of technology waves, they're coming. You need to ride them. You need to ride the wave in front of you, and then maximize, and then ride the next wave. And the problem you have with technology is the waves are getting faster and faster.
Yeah.
It's not the same steady waves. It's all of a sudden getting bigger and slow. And so now, at some stage, you got second guessing. Should I take the wave or not the wave? That's the time to go sit on the beach. That's the time to say, I'm done with this job. There's only so much space you can take.
Yeah.
I actually thrive on that. I cannot wait for the waves to go faster. I'm thinking it's too slow. When are you going to have real artificial intelligence? When are we going to have something like I saw in Star Trek? That's why I joined this company.
I mean, look, you guys are obviously at the cutting edge of tech, right? I mean, let's say your opinion. What is that next wave, right? We've had cloud, we've had data, we've had cyber, we've had AI to an extent. Like blockchain seems to have come and gone to an extent, right? Like what is that next wave in your opinion?
Sometimes the waves come back. That's what people don't realize is, say let's take cloud, for example. It's a big deal, but when I started, I worked mainframes were the big things, and I was working on mini computers. Whereas instead of doing it all in one block somewhere, and mainframe was like the cloud, we did it on mini computers, the DEX, the Access, the Unix, and so on. And people looked at people like me and said, that's toys, that's not really real computing. And then that went from there to PCs, and then from PCs to mobile, and so on. And then we're coming and centralizing a lot of stuff on cloud right now. This wave is going to go back and forth. If I look what is going to happen next, I'm predicting edge would be very important because not everything can be done in the cloud. There's data privacy concerns that people have. So once the cloud companies create data centers everywhere, every country, every state, their optimization cost goes down, right? Instead of running it centrally in one place and optimizing it, you're running all over the place. So I think then also there's a latency issue, right? If you're driving a self-driven car, you don't want the car to ask a question to a cloud and say, hey, should I stop? Or should
Absolutely.
I mean? And if the thing is cut, I still want the car to drive. Otherwise, I'm driving the older car.
Should I stop at the red light that was 5 minutes behind me, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't say, you need to reboot something in the cloud or the link didn't work. You can't do all those things. But that is the edge. So then I see a huge drive back to the edge. But edge is not a new thing. Again, 25, 30 years ago, I worked on they call it real-time programming in manufacturing, robotics, etc. So we worked on that. My title was Computer Integrated Manufacturing. SIM was the term. And then manufacturing disappeared from the United States and other countries and went to China and other places, right? So we just thought it was a labor arbitrage. Let's just do supply chain. How do you manage cost of the least amount of way? Rather than automating the factory floor, can we just automate how goods get transported across different world? My kids are going to look and say, what the hell is that? So you want to buy a guitar in the store next door, or you want to buy an Apple iPhone, which is made 4 miles from my house. But they design it, it goes somewhere else, it was put on a container, comes back, I'm polluting the earth and whatever, and tracking it and all the systems. And then I'm going to go to the local store and buy an iPhone, which is made here, design it. They're going to think this is the craziest thing. You did this because petrol was cheap. Right? You just borrowed on our resources and you put everything on containers, shipped it all over the place, and polluted the earth, and why wouldn't you? You're such a smart company. Why couldn't you make a phone? I mean, why can't you do a 3D printing and make a phone?
Yeah, 100%. It's like delivery on demand or manufacturing on demand or something along those.
It's not just one country. Every country is going to say, hey, why can't I keep the data here, the privacy here? So those are coming. Some immediate trends. I like the 3 years from now, but this immediate trends that's coming is people are still ground with, I think collaboration is going to take even further. I mean, well, Zoom is great and so on. I think this Work 2.0 is here to stay. A lot of us are going to have the flexibility to work from anywhere. And we are going to go to work. I don't think we're going to be all sitting at home and I'm tired of working from home, so I want to go to work, but it's going to be a hybrid environment, right? So I may not ever go 5 days a week to work anymore. So any technology that helps me work on that hybrid mode is pretty critical.
So let me.
Collaboration would be a big one. Edge computing would be a big one. I think anything to do with privacy, data privacy, automation, that's going to be a pretty huge one. AI, I did my thesis in my college again 30 years ago on AI. My wife and I did that. And now it's AI is a trend. So this is what I mean. Waves come back. And so I have to, what is different though with AI is the amount of compute you can get, in a phone is just incredible, right? We couldn't get Alexas and other things working before those days because you need an enormous amount of processing. The voice recognition was terrible with so much processing. Now the phones are not bad, and your Alexa and other device, Amazon Echo, and it's not bad. My car is actually pretty good. I say drive somewhere, it seems to know what it's doing. So artificial intelligence is going to get better and better and better. It'll be good to have a universal translator. Look at Star Trek. Say I'm speaking English and somebody in Chinese is listening to it. Wouldn't it be nice if they can get, instant translation? And AI can do all that right now. And when they ask a question in Chinese, I hear it in English. Yeah. Answer back. Those kind of things are very imminent, and that I think provides tremendous value from an AI standpoint.
But do you know what? I suppose back to your point, right? And sorry, this will take a different tangent now, right? But back to your point around, look, let's say cloud was around for forever, then it was repackaged and remarketed, and it was sold as something brand new, and then it disappeared for a while. Now it's coming back again, and like I suppose looking at it from a perspective of students, right? So like you're back, you're starting your career right now, knowing what you know right now, right? What would you recommend that students should get into, right? Is it like if AI is going to be something massive, is it mathematics? Is it what would you kind of recommend where they should be looking if they're kind of thinking about a career in tech?
So I would say, as if I was doing it right now, don't forget the soft skills. And they don't teach you much of that in soft skills. Yep. Because as computers do more and more mundane things, and I think computers should do more. I'm doing so much mundane things that I don't want to do, right? That I want computers to do more and more work. What humans can maximize is things like empathy. I need to look at your face and say, I don't think he's feeling good. Computers cannot really do that yet. It's several years from doing that. So if you're a doctor, that empathy is important. There are some people intuitively who can say, I don't think you're looking good. There's something wrong. Let me check you out. So maximize on what humans can do is something to focus on. So don't forget the soft skills is one thing I say. To prepare themselves is, I think getting grounded on fundamentals actually help. Going broad on computer science helped me. Nowadays you specialize too much, right? So the security person doesn't really know much about rest of compute, or the networking person doesn't know much about application development. So I would go when you're young, go as broad as you can. Learn programming, learn networking, learn hardware, software, all the other kind of stuff. Because then it lets you pivot. Depending on where the waves are done, you've prepared yourself to go somewhere. If you try to ride a wave, and by the time you graduate and you say AI is a big one and next big one, and go there, that wave is gone.
It's gone.
What do you have? So if you think of it, I need to train myself physically. My core needs to be tight, and I need to have a good instinct and blah. If you prepare yourself that way, then whatever the trends are, you can surf the waves, right? And that's what I would tend to do. It's a great time to prepare yourself fundamentally on a broad as you can.
Yeah. So kind of spread as far as you possibly can, and get a bit of everything right, but don't ignore the soft skills. And I think that's super advice. Super advice, right? And just, I suppose, touching a little bit on, the elephant in the room, and I know we touched on it earlier as well. So, COVID, right?
Yeah.
So obviously massive disruption. IT departments were called on, the second we realized we were all going off site, and we've been working flat out for the last few months, right? So besides the standard kind of technologies, right, and you have, so many people working from home right now, was there anything kind of specific that you guys did beyond the standard to kind of keep people engaged, right? How do you kind of, we're coming into the winter months now, where it's getting a little bit darker earlier and people will feel even more isolated sitting at home. I mean, like, what are you guys thinking from a technology perspective to kind of keep people connected, right?
I'm thinking actually non-technology perspective. Surprisingly, that's the easier part, right? I mean, this tech reasonably works well. I mean, there are improvements we can do to make it even better, but this technology reasonably works well. I mean, you can have more whiteboarding and other kind of things. In fact, the complaints I'm getting is we are too productive. Click and I'm on Zoom and I have 100 Zooms, and then my mom wants to Zoom and video because she's figured out how to do that with me, right? I'm thinking, oh, Mom, I don't want to. Listen, I've had a Zoom all day long, and then I don't want to. You don't want to tell your mom you don't want to Zoom with her. Can I just do audio and walk around?
I bet you never thought you'd be saying that. I don't want to Zoom with you. I mean, who thought that they'd be having that conversation, right?
Yeah, how did you figure it out? I don't understand. But they made it so simple and consumer centric, and she's actually doing with our phone WhatsApp video with me. I'm thinking it's still the same. Why? How many video can we do? And you know how I look like, but I don't tell her that. But the thing is, I'm going low tech now. The reason we are working extremely well is I've spent a lot of time with my friends and a lot of time with my colleagues, drinking beer, having coffee, talking about their families, about their friends, and so on. So I know who they are and what they're thinking. I've built that glue as we talk about. So we are running on that glue that we built. But glue is like any other relationship. You can't take any relationship for granted. You can't just say it's your wife, it's your brother. You still have to work on it, right? So how do you build this glue, is what you need to do. And what I do is phone calls and say, my one-on-one meetings I've gone into, hey, I'm going to get on my cell phone and walk. I would like you to walk as well. Can we just have a conversation? And no Zoom, please don't share presentations and PowerPoint. I'm bored with it. So let's just talk and tell me, how is your family doing? How are you coping with this, and so on. And it's been very therapeutic to me to reconnect the relationship with the people who I love and who work for me. And they are expecting that from me, right? So it's funny that one of my directs, he says, hey, I have things to talk about. I don't want to talk about anything. Can I buy you a socially distanced coffee and talk about nothing, right? And I felt pretty bad. I'm okay with that. He just felt bad. He thought I may feel not uncomfortable having a coffee with somebody. That's how strange the times have become, right?
Yeah.
So we just had a coffee, masks on, sit miles away from each other, and drank a coffee and talked about family, whatever, or what they was doing, health. Came back. That's probably the best meeting I've had. Yeah. So it is very important. Unfortunately, we don't work with computers. We work with humans. I would overwork less on technology, and I would go stronger on building the glue.
Awesome.
Because once you have the glue, once you know who you are, then it's a little easy to stretch the relationship a little further and go remote and so on. But think about it, the reason you have good friends is you've taken the time to wish them for their birthdays or Thanksgiving or whatever. You can't just pick up your friendship from 30 years ago and not even connect at all. It gets a little awkward. Somebody's going to say, you never call me, and now you're calling me because you need a favor. So
it's a great point.
I think that's what I was thinking is people are going to be teched out.
Yeah, and I think it's very true. Let's say there's so many instant messaging networks and that kind of stuff right now. I mean, it must get quite jaded the more tools you kind of roll out, right? But it's low tech, but more personal. Let's say more of a kind of personal.
So my son, he left one of the startups, or one of the things he had was, hey, they're slacking me all the time. Slack is very cool. You can Slack. You're connected. I'm there all the time. He says, my boss is slacking me all the time. And I'm expected to be on Slack all the time. And the minute I pick a pizza, there's a Slack, and the culture becomes I have to respond immediately and so on. And he just says, I don't want to work in that environment.
Yeah.
Right. Which sounded very cool when he started. He said, what is the thing that you need to talk all the time? And then there's no urgency. So, and then what happens is when you send emails or voicemails or Slack or whatever so quickly, you don't process it in your head sometimes, and you just immediately ask the question, hey, how do I restart my computer? Haven't I told you 300 times? but I can't be bothered. See, that's kind of selfish, right? So I'm just giving you an example. So, so sometimes throwing more and more technology and wiring people, you just become chained. You feel, sometimes I turn my thing off and people say, well, I tried to Slack you, I tried to text you. Should I send you a text? Should I send you an email? And I want to tell them, what part of I don't want to communicate with you right now do you not understand?
That's I'd say no, if we had the audience off mute, there would be like this loud gasp when they heard sometimes I turn it off. I mean, like that in our world, it's like, but no, I mean, it's super advice, right? And I suppose like that whole thing around, that people are going to be remote for so long, right? I mean, in your view, how has, how will COVID kind of force the topic of, inclusivity? Let's say the whole, like, diversity has been talked about forever, but, let's say the genders, the disabilities, all that kind of stuff, like, back to your son's scenario, right? I mean, in his example now, the world is his oyster because employers are now hiring from everywhere, right? How is, do you think that's here to stay? Do you think it's a temporary item?
Yeah, let's go completely positive. We've all get comfortable. Ireland feels as far to me as Palo Alto, which is 4 miles away. So you feel the other way of looking at it, you feel as close to me as my buddies in Palo Alto. I think it's a great thing. It's a great thing. I mean, we have been equalized in a way. This is how I'm talking to my son, by the way. This is how I'm talking to my son and my mom. So in a way, Ireland is no more, and it's never been an island. It's no more an island at all with this. And so if I was in Ireland, I would say, what skills do I have and what can I do? And I'll give you an example. There's a lady who I mentor in Ireland. She is trained in aerobics and fitness and so on. So it's very difficult to now do fitness classes. Gyms are closed. And so I told her, what the hell won't you do a Zoom and train? Oh, I need to do marketing. I need to figure out who in Ireland would do. What do you mean Ireland? I mean, do fitness with the US or whatever. Why do you have to market yourself? I mean, just Zoom. So if you can teach something, this is the perfect time to have a Zoom school, teach yoga. I'm looking for a yoga instructor.
I mean, you told me that during the week, and like I've been telling everyone that you've outsourced your yoga to the yoga capital of the world, right? Because I mean, Ireland is, of course, known for we're deep rooted in yoga.
Ireland. And it's kind of weird because then she teaches me all this Indian philosophy, and I say, hey, cut it out, Now you're insulting me. But it's great. I mean, it's great that who cares? She's talented and she's very good and eager, and so that's one. You talked about diversity and inclusion. In certain countries, and I can just talk about India, is a lot of women come into work and then they get married and then they have children and they don't come into work. And for two reasons. One is financially, there's no equality. So they make a financial discussion and say who makes the most money, and the husband invariably makes more money. It's changing, but generally true. And then, you have to support family and kids and so on, the amount of money and time it takes to put a crusher and a babysitter and so on. It doesn't make sense. One of us has to stay home, and it largely becomes the woman. In my case, in the US, my wife made more money than me. So, she said, you stay home for a period of time. But it's largely financial. There's a cultural element as well. And then to re-enter work is very difficult because, you still have young children. You drive for 2 hours up and down. It doesn't make sense. But if you reach out to those people with Zoom right now and say, we want you to do, and bring your children, there's no embarrassment here. And I deliberately, I don't even have virtual background anymore. It's my dirty room with my guitars and everything else. And because who are you trying to hide? I'm inviting you to my living room. So you need to respect the fact this is how I live, and I have to respect the fact that's how you live. Your dog cares, honestly, nobody cares. So we like seeing the dog sometimes better than the person. So the children are a lot more interesting. So it opens up a door for now going after those kind of population and saying, welcome, come on board. And, bring your children to the meeting if they're so interested. Take care of them. It's not a big deal. But inclusion opens up so much opportunities. I also thought about people who are differently enabled. Some people are not comfortable coming into work in spite of, you could give wheelchair access, you could give them a comfortable chairs, but wouldn't some of them just like comfortable sitting in their chair? It's already ready to go, it's fitted. So give them an opportunity to get on the calls and participate. So I'm thinking it's a fabulous opportunity for differently enabled people.
And I think it was always kind of mentioned, I suppose pre-COVID, right, that the millennials, let's call them that, right, that people would always refer to them as millennials, right, that this was a a demand, not a demand, but maybe an expectation. And I think that they were right, you know, flexibility around working conditions. No, but I think it's evolved that this is now an expectation of everybody. That, you know, that we've all gone through this, we've proven that we can do it. So I think the companies that are flexible in this kind of scenario are the ones that will win. They'll be the ones who attract the top talent.
Right? I've told my boss 4 times, and just because I want him to sink in, I said, I'm not coming 5 days of work, week to work, you know, right? And I make it into some state, you know, millennials, I blame everybody else, but then I said, you know, even I'm not planning to come 5 days a week to work, right? See what the reaction he'll have, because, you know, mine, I'm not. I'm just preparing him to say, but I will come in. So my thing is, I like to be at work, see people. So I think a hybrid is an answer for me, but some people would want to not come into the office much at all. Some people would like to come 1 day a week. Some people will be all remote. But if you're working all remote, you just have to figure out how to stay connected. You know, I haven't figured out how to stay connected other than every once in a while going into an office and socializing and so on. So you have to figure out a system for yourself. This is not, I don't think this is a thing to say, let's go sit on the beach and goof off. Then you screw up your career. You have flexibility, and you have to respect the fact that the company, the opportunity is there, and you need to put in your share, right? But it just opens up a lot of borders. There's no walls you can build on this, right? So if I was in Ireland somewhere, I would say, what are the skills I have? How can I market to the world? And how can I work for me incorporated? That's how I would look at it.
Super. And you know, I suppose, and I know we're kind of coming towards the top of the hour, and you're a busy man. So like, just 2 last questions for you, right? So, you know, 2020 has been, you know, hugely distracting for us all. I mean, as a CIO, and you know, what do you kind of see as the challenges ahead of us in kind of 2021 from a kind of, you know, I suppose I'm not going to say what keeps you up at night, because I know the answer to that question now, but I suppose, you know, what are you kind of seeing as, you know, what we need to be focusing on going into 2021 as IT organizations?
I think, you know, there is tremendous, the world was in a high growth period before COVID. Unfortunately, we stalled. There's no other fundamental reason why we slowed, other than the fact that we had this pandemic, right? So I think it's refueling. There's a lot of pent-up growth that is coming in 2021. So I almost say people to enjoy 2020, enjoy your working from home, whatever you do, take a breath, run the marathon while it feels miserable, because all of us want to do twice as much travel. I haven't gone to a real vacation, none of us, and we want to go somewhere. So the travel industry is going to come back. Businesses are booming. Digital transformation is already taking off. People are going to say, we need to do 10 times more digital transformation. The IT industry is going to boom. I think a lot of pent-up growth is coming in 2021. That's how I look at it. Super. And then the war on talent is going to be huge, because people are going to ask these questions. Is that company allowed me to work remotely, and you know, I can work, I don't have to relocate. What kind of flexibility do you have, and so on. So companies who are inclusive and who are smart, and you know, I want to go to people and say, hey, if you're a woman and other companies are not treating you well, come to my company. Right? If you're differently enabled and people are doing racial things and you know they're not treating you well, come here.
That's awesome.
That's a huge differentiator, right? I mean, if you're ignoring 90% of the talent because of your prejudices that you're in your head, great. I mean, I'm going to wipe out the competition, because I'm going to go after people that you don't care about, and because awesome. People are people and they have talent. So 2021 is going to be talent war, and some companies, luckily for us, some of our competition hopefully are going to be so stupid and prejudiced that they're not going to get their best talent. So the positive way of looking at it is that companies who are inclusive and they are flexible and they're open-minded are going to get all the great talent. Because people are who, I used to think, you know, I want to work for a tough guy, tough boss, tough company. That's where you learn a lot of things. But it turns out that's not true anymore, even for me, not just millennials. I want to work for a compassionate boss. I want to work for a visionary boss. I want to be inspired by a boss. So leadership is a vacuum. There are not too many inspiring bosses. There's not too many inspiring visionary people. Vision is not a simple thing. And if you're an IT professional, I would strongly recommend build this vision. I mean, it's very difficult to define, but it's the ability almost to say, what should the world be in 2025? What should the world be in 2030? And be fascinated by the future and have an impatience to bring it. You know, I still watch Star Trek and say, why is the door not opening when I walk into do I have to pull this, and why do I have to put a badge in everywhere I go to my cork office? What the hell? 30 years ago, we keep on putting a badge in. I got my mobile phone. I'm walking. Open the door. Why do I?
Bask, you had all lockdown now to fix this. I mean, like you had all this time, right, to fix it in your engineering background as well. Come on, you've no excuses, right?
We are working on that. I mean, that's the only product like this. We've been
Yeah.
working very furiously on that. You're going to have Star Trek doors and other kind of things. It's because it's a challenge to think about how to bring people back into the
Yeah.
office, and there's a lot of technology needed to challenge that. But having that frustration on, instead of getting surprised by the big waves, to say I cannot wave. The waves are too slow, and the waves are not big enough because this world is not great yet. So when is this AI going to be good enough that I don't have to doing all the stupid work? That's the better attitude rather than it's going to replace my job. So I think
That's it.
having that vision thing and having a frustration, or I would say impatience on building the vision, those things are a good habit to have if you're an IT professional.
Love it.
Yeah. Okay.
Love it. And Bask, look, let's say I know we're at the top of the hour, right? Look, I just wanted to thank you. I mean, genuinely, I'm sure we could kind of sit here and listen to you all day long, right? I mean, let's say it's just such solid advice, right? It's really, really, really good opportunity, right? So thank you so much, right? I know you guys have VM World as well coming up next week. So look, I wanted to wish you the best of luck. I mean, that's a major pivot. I mean, 20,000 people probably, let's say, virtual next week. I mean, that's just going to be absolutely phenomenal, right? So I want to wish you the best of luck with it, right? And genuinely from myself and the whole organization, right? And the county, right? Just thank you very much for kind of giving us the time here today. We really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure. Let me just answer that question. Is dying on somebody's mind. That is a Stratocaster. It's not a Telecaster. It's the original Stratocaster. So I know somebody's not going to be able to sleep tonight because I didn't answer that question. Have a good one.
Fantastic. Bask, thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great day. Thank you.